Hello, everyone. Welcome to what is a special kind of game.
Tales of Symphonia?
No, it was a weird experiment. In case you're wondering, this Studio Tree Crescendo is very minor. They collaborated with Monolith Soft in making Baten Kaitos, the two Baten Kaitos game on the GameCube. This was their major first internal developed game called Eternal Sonata. This game is a weird premise. That's what I say. Okay, stop me if this sounds weird. Famous composer Frédéric François Chopin is dying in his deathbed. He's having a dream where he lives in a JRPG, standard file JRPG fantasy world with monsters and magic.
I've heard weirder dreams.
If you're still here, well, I don't really know the development of it, like what sparkled the idea of making this game, but I know this is the debut of Hideo Baba, a person who will later work on the Tales of series for a couple of times. Nowadays, currently he's on Square Enix doing something, I guess.
Actually, technically, I think he worked before even that. Let me check.
Well, this was, I think this is the work where he contributed most before Tales of Vesperia. Anyway, this is a weird game, and well, I have a bit of things to say, but for now, I enjoyed the cutscene because the cutscenes in this game are long.
It's a good game, but it has issues. That's what we say.
I loved when it came out in time. I realized it's more of a guilty pleasure because I honestly think the flaws are still a bit too aggravating for it to be just a good game with flaws.
Let me put it like this. This is a game that when it came out was probably good, but because
not
it's
the first release,
Jova, because
okay. Pay attention to all you're seeing, by the way, because it will be incorporated in the ending.
Oh boy.
It's all foreshadowing or something like that. A thing that I will say right now, the American voice cast is actually really good. They basically had major voice actors for all of the character, including some NPCs.
Hello, old granny.
Yeah, I thought so.
How important will you be to the story?
Later, Jova. Remember. But what did I say? Yeah, there was the first release was on the Xbox 360 in 2007.
Wait,
however,
so a Japanese property actually came to the Xbox 360?
Remember, it was a time where the PS3 was a shitty hardware to work, to work on, and companies were defecting Sony to go on Microsoft. It backfired spectacularly because just 1 year later, this game got a port on the PS3, which I was the version that I worked on, and it's almost a complete game, Joe. Think of it like Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix on steroids.
So
basically, they reworked practically 50% of the cutscenes, explaining more of the story, and added some gameplay elements like reworked the attacks, reworked level placement, and a couple of expansion. Anyway, this is our co-protagonist, a young 14-year-old girl called Polka, voiced by Erin Fitzgerald.
Looks like she's about to commit suicide.
Yep.
Doing this is easy.
How did we get here, I wonder?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. You think this is medias res, Jova, right?
Yeah.
Keep that thought in mind for the moment. Again, it's gonna be all incorporated later on. I would say, though, in terms of foreshadowing, the game has a terrible pacing because it tells practically the core stuff at the beginning,
oh my god, she's talking while falling. She's talking while falling. It's gonna be one of those games. Now, okay, so what you're telling me, too, is like, well, essentially, the PS3 version of this game compared to the 360 version is like comparing Advent Children to Advent Children Complete.
Yes, but even more. This is probably the most egregious case I've seen, or where an update release of just 1 year on a similar system has for almost double the content. Like, the 360 version is garbage, pure garbage, especially compared to this. In terms of gameplay, it's too easy, because you can destroy the enemy even in New Game Plus. And in terms of story, there are like a shit ton of things that are not explained or elaborated better. keep in mind, I still do believe that the PS3 version does not explain better everything, and a lot of things are still very confusing, but compared to the 360 version, it's a godsend.
So are there any things in the 360 version that are done better than the PS3 version?
No.
Not
Well,
that
I
I'm
would
aware.
argue maybe I would argue the leveling up system in case you're just want to have a speed run, but
Just wondering if we may have a favorite ref on our cases like, well, where for the most part, yes, the remaster, remake, or
No, I
re-release,
can tell you, Jova, that the PS3 version is the to-go version. There's not even a difference in graphics or frame rate. Everything is on check. It runs on a consistent 30. I've seen barely any downgrade aside from one occasion or two.
Well, the PS4 version of Very Fancy Ref is also the go-to version.
Yeah,
Regardless of how the PS3 version does some things better, the PS4 actually has a consistent frame rate for one.
No, we're not having a case of Very Fancy Ref where maybe if anything, Jova, again, it's better because they also removed a particular skit that was in the 360 version that was a bit mean-spirited.
Okay,
anyway, first thing first, first major problem of all, we barely know the geography of this world. It's not gonna be explained better. You get a gist of idea where things should be and how we're connected to each
It's
other.
generic JRPG world too.
I know, but I wish but they put a
You can
big
do better than
emphasis-
that.
Not just that, they put a big emphasis on the vastness and importance of this world, but they don't even show us anything too much about it. For example, I don't know how certain dungeons are connected to cities in some occasions. But
Yes,
anyway, I'm already digressing. I've already skipped a couple of things. Basically, this is a beginning narration of made by Jameson Pierce. Also, Papa Near is telling us about the wonderful things of nature.
Hey, Pedro, Jameson Pierce giving the open intro. Sound familiar?
Catherine.
Not just that, Teal. Let's just say Jameson Pierce is in Ace Attorney 6.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
All
oh
right, then.
boy, his role is, well, okay, you like Papa Near, I think you'll like his role. In fact, I'm even going to have you play that character because your voice is perfect for it.
anyway, basically, the gist of this is that every major character and location in this game will have names that are musical themed. Characters will be named after musical styles or instruments, and so are the cities. Like I just mentioned, our co-protagonist is called Polka. The only major non-tied to this game will be our actual protagonist, Frederick, which will be Frederick from Swashbuckling.
You know, it's weird. Like, musical name puns are, yeah, they're puns, but they're puns that don't always stand out as briskly.
They're
I guess
not.
it's because
They're not for the sake of puns. They're just for having the names. I haven't played it myself, but I know that recently, at the time of this recording, recently released the Shining Resonance for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, and PC has a similar theme.
I think it's more so for the quirk of it, Jova.
In fact,
And also the theming. This is all a game about centered about music and what it means.
The names
So,
don't have to relate to their character like in Ace Attorney. They just have to be, music related.
So, question: how much of this narration is important? Because we spent quite a while talking about this one
This is
village,
just the
which
script.
is
That get used to cutscenes going way longer than it should because there are a lot of. Basically, this is the anti. Magic Voyage. Instead of characters shouting constantly, there are a lot of moments where there are pauses that are way too long. You could just cut those 1-2 seconds and the dialogue will be just normal, but no, they linger. And another thing that will be noticeable, not immediately, but noticeable soon enough, will be that whoever did the mocap movements for these characters, because it's clearly mocap for these cel-shaded 3D models, probably use the same thing that they use for the Donkey Kong Country cartoon, because the movements are so limited and characters appears very puppet-ish.
which is weird because I mean, by the time of this game, I'm pretty sure that we had enough motion captured games.
I
so-
would argue that PS2 games had better movement for their cutscenes.
Final Fantasy, both the Final Fantasy X games had
Also
better
12
motion capture.
for the
That too.
cutscene. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Anyway, these are again our co-protagonist Polka, winner, basically child form, and their mother, Solfege, voiced by Cindy Robinson. There you go, finally, after Blue Dragon, she got this role. Basically, she's explaining a metaphor of humanity and the difference between good and evil, using water as a metaphor of what the moon changes the course of the tides and all that shit. And Polka is like, but what about ones that are not touched, that are like too small, like a puddle? It's a metaphor for basically minorities.
Thank you, Reflection. I can see up beside her dress.
Not completely, at least. And besides, she's using
Yes.
those weird baggy pants, Victorian-like.
The pantaloons.
Things like wealth, vanity.
Yes, another thing, the messages in this game are hammered to your head.
Get it, people? Everyone who wants money is evil. I mean,
It's not Detroit Become Human level of hammered in, but it's closer.
I think the best way to describe this script is like, well, it feels like, okay, they've got a good idea, but they're so afraid that the audience will lose themselves, and honestly, I can't blame them because these speeches go on for a long time, that they feel like they have to repeat themselves a lot. Or
But
just
not
make
just
it
that,
blatant.
Jova. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of instances where are just pauses that are just too long, almost as if the game needs to, pause and basically ask you, please reflect on what we just said when you don't really need.
The only way to stop it would be for you to
But again-
Mommy, why does me committing suicide have anything to do with the fight of good and evil?
Those big waves will become
Oh, important. It will be important.
Destiny is a
eventually.
weird thing, child.
I mean,
But,
holy cow,
let
that's
me-
a weird.
Let me speak of positively once again for a second. Despite the mock-up things, I really love the art style and the design of characters, ambience, and monsters of this game. Basically, similar to Legend of Mana, one of the strong suits is the presentation. Combining what I just said with a soundtrack made by veteran composer and extreme workaholic Motoi Sakuraba, but I'll explain in a bit. Now it's time to go to the real world, specifically in Paris, where, if you know the date, Frederick Francois Chopin is on his deathbed due to tuberculosis.
What a happy way to die.
Not just that, I know this is romanticization and everything, but Chopin was not that handsome.
Wow, he looks pretty young, actually, like a teenager. How old was he when he died?
Like, I get what they mean, so my suspension of disbelief is enough for this, but I just want to point out as well.
Anime, please, settle
Also,
down.
Jova, there is no fun way
Wait.
to die.
Wait.
Not just that.
Wait,
not just that.
hold on. Why does Polka's mother look like whoever this woman is here? What is she like? His
Another
lover?
problem is that a lot of faces, due to the mock-up and the technology we use, a lot of faces are just copy-pasted.
I mean, she even has a similar hairdo. Like, again, who is this woman supposed to be? Chopin?
George Sand. Basically, Chopin's main love interest.
Was it on purpose that he happened to have a love interest with a woman with a
Not
masculine
in this
name?
case, but it's interesting you mentioned that, Jova, because a lot of characters in the game, well, almost all the characters in the game will be connected to Chopin's real life in some form of capacity. Anyway, chapter 1, Raindrops.
It's kind of a shame to you. You mentioned how, because of the motion capture, they had a limited usage of faces. So I'm like, okay, you have a limited use of faces. Why not do the classic Wizard of Oz parallels? Like, instead of having that woman be Polka's mother, unless Chopin's gonna fall in love with that woman in this world, because he's obviously coming
There
to
you
this
go.
world.
Just like I mentioned, the score is done by Motoi Sakuraba, and unlike in games like The Tales of or Star Ocean, he has a full orchestra here, which allows him to go a bit more, expand a bit more than he usually does. A common complaint about Motoi Sakuraba is that he gets very repetitive, and he uses the same instruments over and over and over again. This game manages to calm down some of his complaints thanks to the usage of an orchestra, and he's experimenting with some themes that he will ultimately expand in the Dark Souls games.
Yeah.
Well,
Now-
it's a thing based on Chopin, so wouldn't it make sense if like most of the soundtrack was Chopin's pieces?
A couple of them will be. Anyway,
The
tutorial.
forest around here aren't really very strong, so I should be able to defeat them without too much
Aw,
trouble.
she's
But
gonna
just
kill
to be
them.
safe, I'll go
See
over the base
see
and
games
fight.
and medias. This is how you do the as you know thing.
Goes from fastest to
Yeah,
slowest, right?
a monologue to yourself.
It looks like it's my turn now.
Clyde, you have to wait your turn. That's lame. No, Clyde,
It's a game,
like olden times.
like in the
You
Middle
have to wait your
Ages.
turn. Like in the Middle Ages,
Yep.
Clyde. I know it's lame, Clyde, but that's how we're fucking doing it. All right, douchebag, bash Clyde's face in. Don't be Jack.
I should try moving around a bit to start with. Until this action
Anyway,
comes
might
once
as
in
well.
while,
I'll
I
explain a
can
bit
move
more
around
of the
and
combat
hide.
itself because it will be
Only
repeated
increases my
later on
action
for the sake of a
moves.
couple of other
So if I
characters.
don't know what to do next, I can stop
But
the
a bit of
without
technicality on the
using my
specifics
turn.
of this
Moving
run that I'm
around
doing.
isn't the only
I'm
way
doing
to
New Game
attack
Plus,
enemies.
which is called Encore
This
mode,
time, I
appropriately,
think I'm gonna try
which
to attack them.
changes a couple of things and adds a couple of other things.
Now
For
I've got
starters,
it.
like
I'm
in
starting
most
to
New Game
remember how
Plus,
to do this
enemies
more
get
and more.
buffed
There's
big
also one other
time.
thing about
They
the
get
action
health,
games. Every
health,
time one of my
defense,
attacks
and
hits an
attack
enemy,
boost,
the action gauge
like
goes up a
50%
little,
more,
which
which
means the
changes
more I
everything
attack my
in
enemies,
terms of the
the more
gameplay
extra time I
because
get to keep on
of
moving
the
and
way
fighting.
damage
Alright,
dealing
I
is
think
dealt,
maybe
but
time
I'll
to
explain a bit
attack.
more about later.
So would you say that New Game Plus mode is, does it make the experience more fun and varied, or
Yeah,
just more
I
hard?
would say if you're really sick of a challenge, yes. Because the normal game is the PS3 version absolutely difficult to normal mode, but not too much. Just a simple bit of grinding is enough for you to complete the whole game with a breeze.
I
And core
see.
mode is where the real fun starts. However, for the sake of this playthrough, I decided to ask Pedro some help, and I'm using a specific file that helps me with the stats of the characters.
Okay, it's my
Wait,
turn.
I'm not
Encore
proud of
mode, is that
this.
the New Game Plus?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
Wait, so is Encore mode like the official term for the New Game Plus
Yes,
thing here?
Yes.
You're-
However, thanks to this specific save file, I basically have characters in a specific condition where they have boosted stats. The trade-off being they cannot level up properly, so they're basically stuck with low HP, making effectively all of them glass cannons. So basically,
Huh.
at least there is some minor challenge here.
So yeah, from what I can understand, the way this game works is like, well, basically you have your action gauge. It's sort of like the ATV in that it decides how long you have to do
It
action.
mixes turn-based and action in tactic and a bit of tacticality.
So I'm guessing that like for stronger attacks that last longer, you need a bigger action gauge to earn.
Basically, no, not really. The normal, the characters have their normal combo. Some characters have a 3-way combo, others a 4-hit standard that they can repeat, and they have different speeds on their own. However, what changes is their special attacks, which will be explained later. Basically, special attacks consume time because they do a particular animation, and ranges from having multi-hit attacks to specific enemies, to having, for example, a projectile, to curing, and stuff like that.
So in a way, it kind of mixes, like, well, the reaction commands of Kingdom Hearts 2 with the overall feel of Final Fantasy 7. The difference being that's like, well, unlike in Final Fantasy 7,
Think of
you're
it
doing your attacks
also.
more in
Think
real
of it
time.
also, Jova, similar slightly to a fighting game,
Yeah,
where
that
you do
too.
the standard combo and then you do the super move. Only
Yeah.
that you don't really have a meter for the super move, but the game compensates in other things.
I have not, it kind of harkens back to Project Cross Zone.
This is actually a game type of gameplay that's very unique. I originally thought it was gonna be implemented sooner or later in the Tales of game, but the Tales of games have always been much more action based. So this is clearly not their type of alley.
So there's a place called Retardando.
Yeah, a city because of music.
Yeah, of course.
This was more
Aw,
so Baba
little
taking a
chipmunk.
break from the series. To correct you, Theo, actually, Theo Baba's first major role was being the director of the PS2 release of Tales of Destiny. So
all right. Ooh.
So let me guess, this was like the first thing where he was like,
let's
the
just say
main
he got
guy
better.
in
Let's just say
charge.
audience he got better.
Yeah.
Wait. Hold on. What game were you referring to there?
Tales of
Tales
Destiny.
of Destiny.
I don't hear about that one actually.
I don't think it's the worst Tales of game, but I do believe it doesn't have a good story.
I'm guessing there's a reason I don't hear about that game as much as other Tales games.
Well, the
it was
earlier Tales
official
games
second
aren't-
one.
Well, the earlier Tales of games are nowhere near as talked about nowadays as the modern because the modern ones are much more
Anyway,
popular. So,
Important stuff, just like Arif, Polka is a flower selling girl.
It's like I said,
Specifically, she sells floral power, which is basically herbal medicine.
This is
However, people are not buying it anymore because it costs too much, and we have an alternative called a mineral powder.
What's this?
Which is not
Sorry.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Finish.
which is not taxed. It basically doesn't. It's very cheap, and it has the same properties. So people are saying, I might as well, spend less for this.
Aw,
What's
a
this
shame.
you say, Teo? A JRPG female character that's a flower seller? I've never seen that before.
Not only
That's like one of the
that,
most prevalent tropes. This was literally the first JRPG trope that Snack World made fun of in the first episode.
Not only that, guys, but the opening sequence suggests that she's gonna die. So what? So the flower-selling girl dressed in red is probably gonna end up being the
This is
sacrificial
the-
lamb, just like Arif.
So what you're saying, Jova, is this is the story of how I died.
Yep.
Probably.
But there you go. Polka apparently can use healing magic.
Let me guess, though, that's looked down upon.
They do. The people have a reason, but it's a stupid one, if I have to be honest.
Did that help? Does it feel any better?
Stay away from
How
me!
dare you save my life?
Fuck you too, then.
Why didn't you just leave me to die?
Wow! Did you
And here I thought I could finally end my suffering.
Come back here right now! Never go near anyone that glows like that girl did. Do you understand me?
Toss boulders on there, by the way.
So they're just triggered by flashing lights?
No, come on.
That's very,
No, we actually are gonna explain.
No, I know.
Already in this part about.
So,
in
I
the next
guess
one.
that happened.
Don't worry, Jova. We'll get soon enough an explanation why people are racist against the magic users.
Of course. Well, hey, that's another typical JRPG. User is part of a disgraced race that people look down upon.
Here's the basic.
Depends.
Sorry.
Not everyone does it, but yeah, it's becoming more and more common. And I don't really like
And
it.
you know
but
what?
go on, Pedro.
And tropes that are used a lot. I crack a joke every now and then, but if it's done well enough, then so be it.
The basic gist of it is this. His first game was Death by Degrees,
A
whatever the hell.
spin-off of Tekken, which should never be looked upon. But
What?
pass next. Thank you very
He
much.
was only a production manager on it though, so he didn't really have anything in it. It was just a production manager, so that's fine. He was director of Tales of Destiny, like I just said. He was the producer of Tales of Innocence on the DS. Producer of the director's cut of Tales of Destiny.
Basically, re-release.
He was the production super. Oh, here's an interesting thing. Back in 2008, when they were both, for the record, there were two Tales of games released: Tales of Symphonia: Dawn of the New World, and Tales of Vesperia for the Xbox 360. For the Vesperia, he was only the brand manager. So I'm guessing I'm guessing he was just an executive on that. Whereas he was actually a production supervisor in Dawn of the New World. So that's kind of interesting. I actually like Dawn of the New World better, so that's fine by me.
Trying to remember, what's the Tales game, recent one that's bad? Obviously not
Zestiria. Fortunately, Berseria more than made up for it. Berseria is in a lot of ways the best game in the series when you get right down to it.
So, Berseria is how I actually got into the Tales series because pirates, but it was itself a pretty good game. So, question though, what happened with Zestiria? What exactly made it bad, per se?
See, here's the buzzing.
From what I know, false advertising. The marketing
incredible false advertising.
Promoted a completely different game.
Basically, Joe, before the game came out, there was an OVA that they released that was really, really good. That made me really look forward to the game because it was, like I said, it was really good. It introduced an interesting concept. It did a good job in introducing me to the characters and making me care about them. For example, guess what, Jova? The female protagonist of that OVA, even though the OVA makes it look like she's going to be an important character, she's barely in the actual game.
she's basically for the tutorial area, and then she's gone. It became
So much so that they released an Alicia's story DLC to,
which is something that the Tales of series never did so before.
Yeah, it was mostly because of the backlash that they did that.
And from what I hear, the game itself was rather terribly coded as well.
It's not that it was terribly coded. I thought it was fine. It's just that
It was mostly story problems, Joe.
I would argue even there was one major problem. See, you know what's the sad part? The sad part is about the battle system of Tales of Zestiria is that it kind of felt like it was trying to be kind of a successor to the Grace's battle system, which is my personal favorite. Unfortunately, they screwed up the camera. The camera is way too close to you, and you don't get to see as much as you want. Like it's kind of hard to explain. But if you play Grace's and then play that game back to back, you'll see exactly what I mean.
Mind you, the reason I bring it up is because, like, when the fall for Tales of Zestiria occurred, it was big. Like,
no, Zestiria was going to be a big thing, Joe, because usually the Tales of games only have like a year of development. They're literally a JRPG. Hold on, the cutscene.
Basically, it's Polka returning to her mother. Yeah.
So what's up with the cat?
Oh, it was just occupying the bench.
Cats because cute.
Does Valentine take possession of the couch too often, Shiroi?
Usually it takes possession of my laptop because it's
Of course.
Oh, wow.
Just wait till one day it presses the exact sequence of keys and turns you into Fricazette.
Nice hot stew.
Beautiful.
One time I was woken up by my computer had gone into lock, so she was sitting on the keyboard, so of course I had to put up with the beep until I got up and shoved her away.
Are you afraid to touch me?
See, this is what I mean. Those pauses are unnecessary.
Did Yoshinori Kitase direct this?
Not just that, like, I get it. Pauses are important for conversation, but at the same time, they do not need to be abused.
Exactly. Like,
not only that, but the camera work is awkward. Like, okay, you want to have a long pause, then do something with the camera. Have it zoom in.
I can tell you, Jova, that rough memory here, but I honestly positive that there are not particularly S shots like Toriyama. Tomotomo Toriyama would do.
Well,
so
no,
I
I mean, the studio doesn't usually do that kind of stuff.
No matter
I
what
mean,
do,
that's the least of our worries. I mean, look.
I mean,
If
the
a
worst
shot's
thing
from the
they do
rear, it
is
just happens to be
sorry.
there.
The worst thing they do is hot spring scenes, but the hot spring scenes in the Tales 00s are awesome, so I don't mind that honestly.
Oh yeah, in fact, they even incorporated some of that hot spring action into Project Blossom.
Probably my favorite one.
It's a thing of Japan.
Probably my favorite one is the one in Xillia 2, because that one was probably the funniest.
Oh, and I guess that's the end of the first part.
At least for now. We will reprise the action on Polka later on, so stay tuned for part 2.
See you later.
See you later.
See ya.